Before we dig in, a quick thank you to the sponsors ready to grow with the Soil Sisters. Fed and Happy is the official nutrient provider for the Soil Sisters projects because we believe in the Fed and Happy philosophy that if the worms won't eat it, neither will we. And Tejas Tonic is the official beverage of the Texas Soil Sisters. We especially love that the hemp for Tejas Tonic is organically farmed in the Texas Hill Country, with farms in both Dripping Springs and Lukenbach, Texas. The Soil Sisters podcast is powered by B&P Electric. Whether you're building, remodeling, installing low-voltage landscape lighting, or in need of an inspection, B&P is your Central Texas electrical contractor. Find links to our sponsors in the podcast show notes or head over to txsoilsisters.co.
Your will, not mine.
Yep.
And
give
now,
me wisdom and favor.
Oh, my gosh. And let me see with your eyes and let me hear with your ears and let me speak with your mouth. You tell me what to say.
Yep.
So then I don't have to worry about it. And I know when that's my prayer every morning, then I don't care how anybody looks at me for what I said because I know I said what he wanted me to say.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, we'll be fine.
Yeah. One of my brothers he was the one that originally got me thinking along these lines. He had a neighbor that I think the guy ordered Johnson Sioux compost. He had seen some of the results that Dr. David Johnson was getting with his compost, and he had ordered it, and he was neighbor to him up there, and he was telling me what they had seen and so forth. So I watched some of Dr. David Johnson's videos, and you could see the difference. It was there with the biology.
Yes.
And so I thought, I didn't pay too much attention. My wife was still alive at that time, and I was busy taking care of her here at home. And I had bought some of the compost, but I hadn't used it. Then after I started listening in December of 22, when I got sick, then it began to click. Well, I listened to him talk about it, and I knew that was the compost that I had bought. Mm-hmm. And I thought, okay, now it's beginning to all kind of click.
Yeah.
You know, when you look at the results, are you familiar with that couple in Australia, Haggerty's?
Yes, they were in Nicole Masters' book.
When you see
Ian,
what the results they're getting with the foliar and the in-row and with the seed treatment, putting it down with the seed. I heard recently, I was listening to somebody said that they had sold their entire wheat crop to another country because they knew it was chemical free and they got paid a premium for it.
That is amazing.
And when you talk and you listen to what they're farming, what is it, 10, 20,000 acres? It's amazing. Then I listened to, I think it was on the Soil Food Web, this young guy in Illinois that had decided to get into it. And this was a year or two ago now. I haven't listened to him recently, but he was farming somewhere around 10,000 acres. He had dedicated a self-propelled sprayer to do nothing but spray biology.
Yes.
And he figured saved his quote that first year, he had saved somewhere around $150 an acre on inputs. So figure that out on 10, 11,000
exactly.
acres.
Wow.
And we got away from this thing that goes on all the time in the chemical side. Well, right. I got this yield or I got that yield. Well, I want to beat the neighbors or I want to do this or whatever. That's not the way it really will work for you. If you want to stay in the business,
exactly,
this is the thing that'll keep you in the business.
Yep. But I want to start out with a little bit of your history because you are a shining example of what we need our older generation of farmers to be thinking, like you're emulating the things that we want to see. So I just want you to know while we're having this conversation, I am thinking about our dad listening to it. So we'll reveal and talk a lot about regenerative agriculture through the lens of you and your experience as an older farmer.
Okay.
You're listening to the Soil Sisters podcast, where we dig in on family farming and ranching, regenerative agriculture, healthy living, and planting seeds in our community. We invite you to listen, subscribe, and grow with the Soil Sisters. Welcome to the Soil Sisters podcast. I'm your host, Joanna Newting, joined by my blood, soul, and soil sister, Crystal.
Hi, sister.
Hello. Y'all, we are on the hills. No, we're on the heels.
Yeah,
I've been in the country too long.
we are in the hills.
We're on the heels of our family reunion. And so we popped back by a new friend of ours' place in Clyde, Texas. We're sitting here with Bob Kirkwood. He is a farmer of 30 acres of Bermuda coastal hay. He does about 3 cuttings a year and has created quite a stir with what he's doing, shifting from a big ag model to regenerative agriculture. And so we wanted to showcase Bob in his 72 years of glory. Is that right, Bob?
I'll be 79 this fall.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my
gosh.
Goodness gracious. Yes, please, and thank you.
This is like
I
the
am
best
so
surprise of the
happy.
day.
Yes.
You're amazing,
Yes,
Bob.
you are.
Well, my philosophy is that as long as the Lord leaves me here, I'm going to do the best I can.
Yes, sir.
Amen, Bob.
Give him the glory.
Yes.
Well, I would love for you to just start at the beginning. Tell us where your agricultural journey started, and then we'll just flow from there.
I started as a kid, like I told you all, somewhere around 5th or 6th grade. An old A John Deere, a 6-foot one-way, and 2-bottom plow, farming for mom and dad. I'm the oldest of 9, and my next sibling close to me is 5 years younger than I am, so I was pretty much it for a while as far as farm labor is concerned, and farmed somewhere in the neighborhood of 120, 140 acres with that equipment. And so that was kind of a learning experience. I've always enjoyed the farm, enjoy running equipment. And at that time, why everything, this was in kind of south central Kansas, southwest Kansas, everything was clear farmed. There was no cover crops. It was a traditional model of, if you keep that, there was summer following going on where you'd leave the ground lay for a year and then go back in and plant. But most of it was wheat and milo. And of course, we had livestock. And
What livestock did y'all have?
well, as a kid, we had 4-H. We had cattle. I had hogs. I guess that was pretty much it. But then my family had sheep at one time and cattle. And then in the 80s, they kind of got out of all of that as far as livestock is concerned and went to farming. But still, the same model was there, clear farming. You keep your fields clean, keep the weeds if they come up while you get out there and tear them up and kill them and keep it clean till you plant in the fall or whatever.
We know the drill.
That is literally what my dad just told us at the table yesterday at lunch.
If you listen to Gabe Brown and he talks about his father-in-law, you know what his father-in-law liked to do when he retired. He kept a tractor and bought a new disc, and he would disc for the neighbors for free.
Yeah. Yes.
That's so.
People like to drive tractors.
Yes, they like tillage.
Yes.
And so that's the way it's been. And then my brother and nephew started into no-till there in, probably the 80s. Chemical no-till, and could see a big difference as to crop yields and so forth with that, and even in weed reduction and so forth.
Did they dry land farm?
Yeah, everything's dry. Well, my nephew has some irrigated, but as I understand the stuff that's going on now with water, that may not continue. Matter of fact, I listened to them the other day why there is some type of a program coming out where they will be paid to shut off their irrigation well. And if they do that and they like the results, I think it was 3 years or something like that, they might continue in the program and just go back to dryland farming. So who knows what the future, of course, our problem with irrigation in this country is we need to watch what the Israelis do. The Israelis are very good at use of their water.
Yeah.
And so we could learn a lot from, you get it underground irrigation and all kinds of things are more efficient than
the
sprinklers.
drip irrigation works well in that
drip
area.
irrigation, yeah.
So you were farming at such a young age, and you knew that's what you wanted to do, and so you went to college and...
Yes, I got a degree from Kansas State and ended up going to work for Farmland Industries.
What was your degree in?
My major was in ag mechanization, kind of a step below an engineer, kind of like a test engineer for John Deere or somebody like that, and then animal husbandry minor. And then I ended up working for Farmland Industries for 13 years out of college.
So talk to me about Farmland Industries.
Farmland Industries was originally started in, I think it was southeastern Kansas. It was originally called in 1929 Union Oil Company. The farmers and the ranchers decided that they wanted to compete with like the Standard Oils and so forth with their own base products like petroleum and feed and fertilizer and equipment supply, and gain the profits from that. And it would be paid back to patronage because the farmer or rancher would be a member of a local co-op. Mm-hmm. The local co-op was then a member of Farmland Industries.
So our little co-op in Jayton that had that same co-op logo, that was part of it.
They were a member of Farmland Industries then. Yep.
All right.
We operated the central part of the United States from Texas to Minnesota and got caught. I guess the way I saw it personally, we got caught in the early 80s with the high interest rates, and the company was highly leveraged, and so things started coming apart. And then I think part of it had to do with management, as you see go on nowadays.
When you went to work for Farmland Industries, based on what you had learned in your ag degrees in college, did it just feel like that was the natural step, and that was like you were doing something good for agriculture?
Oh yeah, that was that was the model. If you had a crop out there, you could do your soil tests, and of course now we know that the soil tests that we have in some cases are only representative of part of what's out there.
Yes.
Particularly if you look at what the biology can do. So therefore, that little scale that I showed you all, you would read the soils test and say it said, for example, they had 50 pounds of nitrogen and they needed, say, 150 or 200 pounds for corn, then you would just figure the mix based on them needing that amount of nitrogen or the phosphorus or potassium that they needed.
This thing that he showed us, it's like a little scale, and there's charts everywhere, and you slide it based on, if it's potatoes or corn or whatever you're growing, but to make sure you know exactly how much inputs you need from them.
Yeah, from your chemical sources. And now we know with the work that's being done and been done for years, and a lot of it wasn't apparent to us. When you look at Gabe Brown and David Brandt and these people, out there for 20, 30, 40 years, and they're seeing results of the regenerative methods.
Yes.
And that's where the problem lies.
So you spent 12 years working for chemical agriculture, and then did you transition out of ag at that point? Or
No, I've been in sales and management most of my career. I've managed a ag chemical department at a cooperative there in Kansas, and I've managed a couple of co-ops as general manager. And so I was responsible for the total operation in some cases, or just the chemical fertilizer side.
Well, and the reason I love this so much is because you know just as much as anyone about chemical agriculture.
Yes.
And you were introduced to new information and made different choices for yourself and your farm now. So what happened for you to get from there to where you are now?
Well, one of the things that I've watched over the years, our coastal Bermuda field, we've used chemicals on it, chemical fertilizer and herbicides and insecticides and so forth. A lot of times I would put the fertilizer on, say, after a cutting, and you would think, okay, you put fertilizer on, you'd see this plant just green up, take off. And in some cases, I'd see nothing almost. And I thought, something's not right. And then when I got to studying this and listening to different people that are in it and different doctors and so forth, I thought, well, first of all, if I'm only getting about 30 to 40% usage of that nitrogen, I'm throwing away or I'm burning 50 to 60% of my dollars on just that one item. So why would I do that? And then at the same time, I'm not developing a healthy soil, a healthy biome, a healthy plant. And if I have animals, I'm not going to develop a healthy plant. And if I eat the plants and animals, I'm not going to have a healthy biome in myself.
Yes.
So I thought, you know what? And the other thing, like I say, it was both economic and looking at what I know goes on after listening to all these people from a biology standpoint, that you need to make sure that you've got a healthy soil, a healthy biome in that soil, and a healthy plant. And that decreases your problems with weeds, with insects, all kinds of detrimental things begin to disappear.
Yes.
Now, I'm not saying they'll totally disappear, and I'm not saying that what you do is you'll have success with every move. Because the people that I listen to, they'll tell you right up front, oh, we tried this and it didn't work.
Yeah.
But we didn't stop. We went back and did something else. It's just like I was listening to this young farmer in northeast Colorado, and they've been through the drought, if you're all familiar with the drought in Kansas and eastern Colorado, and we had it here. And he said they had a total crop failure. They were totally wheat, dry land, about 2,000 acres. And he started transitioning into regenerative agriculture, growing buckwheat and so forth. And they had a total crop failure. And he had been trying to convince his mom and dad of the benefits of this, and they were going along. And he said it was amazing. He went in to talk to his mom and said, well, I don't know what we're going to do now. She said, I guess we'll plant a cover crop. So
Yes.
there you go.
Yes.
We are having similar conversations right now with our own experimentation. I mean, these last several months are the very beginning of our regenerative journey with our family. And we've been so excited because after our second planting of the hemp, we have had a lot of really, really good rain. So we were so excited to go home and see the fields. And with really, really good rain, we got a lot of really, really good stickers to go along with the hemp. And it was just like a deer in the headlight. Like I did not expect this. This is not what I thought I was going to see. And immediately the conversation shifted to, okay, well, what's our next move? What do we do now? Like clearly this is not going to be harvestable in a way that we intended to sell it. So now how do we use what we have here for the benefit of our land? How do we implement our livestock into this, and just figuring out what the next move is? I mean, it's a giant experiment with a bazillion moving parts.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a learning process. Like I say, when I listen to these people who've been in it for years, why they tell you up front, you know, not everything works. And the other thing that you get into, and one thing that I've seen here, is that last year I went totally cold turkey. No chemical fertilizer, no chemicals of any kind. Well, I did put on a pre-emerge for grass burrs early in the spring. You know how dry it was early last year, and wasn't real enthused with the results of that. And I had listened to people, they said, well, you may not be able to go completely cold turkey on your fertilizer because that plant is kind of like a drug addict. You've been feeding it. It's been getting fed rather than getting the nutrients from the biology, the combination, the symbiotic relationship between the biology and the plant and the soil. And so I thought this spring I had a cover crop and I had 10 different seeds planted this winter, and I was going to take it off as a hay crop. And the major surviving parts were a beardless wheat and triticale. And so I was out putting biology down, foliar spraying biology, and I got to looking at it as I was running over it with the tractor, and I thought, you know, this looks kind of anemic. I wonder if what they told me is working. And so I went to the local dealer, brought home about between 20 and 30 pounds of nitrogen to the acre and about 10 pounds of sulfur, because I had listened to a guy raising triticale, and he said, don't forget your sulfur if you got triticale. 2 weeks later, that crop turned from a pale green to an emerald green.
Yeah.
First time I'd seen results like that here. So then I went back and I did put some fertilizer back on the grass after the first cutting. Well, yeah, it was after the first cutting. And I just decided, okay, if you guys want fed a little bit, I'll feed you, but eventually we're going to get to where we wean you off of it.
In Nicole Masters' book, For the Love of Soil, she says if you're going to do that, add some humates to it. You're just giving your microbes a little support.
Right.
So this is the process. So, yeah, absolutely.
Well, I think over the years, 10, 15 years of chemical, I don't know how much microbial activity I had left when I started.
Well, we've always got the bacteria.
Yeah.
And
we need that fungal component.
Absolutely. And that's where the no-till comes
Yeah.
in, is giving those fungus an opportunity to create those networks and not be torn up.
I was even thinking, I told you all I had a bioreactor going. I was out underneath one of the oak trees out there. I didn't point out to y'all, but anyhow, we had cleaned it up, cleaned out all the briars underneath it a couple of years ago. And I was out there mowing around it the other day, and I thought, wonder if it would make a difference if I go out there and get some of that soil from around that tree and put in that bioreactor to help boost my fungal component.
Yeah, I love it. Well, and we need to be using our own native fungal,
Right.
species and bacteria and that kind of stuff. So that's great.
I haven't done it yet, but that thought crossed my mind as I was out there mowing.
Yeah.
I bet this is
That's
underneath
right.
this tree why there's some pretty good fungal activity that would benefit that bioreactor.
I love it.
So I'll probably end up doing that.
And during this journey, you're listening to a lot of different voices and you're gaining different perspectives. And I like what I hear that you're doing. Like, okay, well, I'm going to take this that I learned from you and this that I learned from you. And you're not just grabbing one person's playbook and trying to run it. And the fact that you're understanding that some of this might work, some of this might not work. It's my job to pay attention, to keep meticulous records, take down the data, be willing to bob and weave, through this process. It's not cut and dried. And I think that is that limited mindset that big agriculture has instilled in everyone, is that I can do this one thing and I know it's going to happen and it's going to work every time.
Yeah.
Well, that's fine if it works, but you're not looking at the myriad of terrible things it's leaving in its wake.
Well, the other thing that's happening now, too, and we're even starting to see it, is that this chemical culture is getting the soil to the point that it won't produce.
Yeah.
We're almost producing a dead soil is about where we're
no
at.
matter how much you put in.
Yeah, no matter. You can put all the NPK and micronutrients and everything. And I can even foresee, if this continues, us getting to the point that you won't be able to produce a crop on that soil because of what's happened to it. Unless you're growing, a crop that's designed for poor soil and for those conditions, then, you would maybe be able to
Well,
survive.
and I'm sure Monsanto's working on a seed for that.
Well, also, actually, that white Sonora wheat grows better in a struggling soil. This is what Dax Hansen
with Oatman Farms. And, he's growing in Arizona. And so he was looking at what are things that thrive in this environment? Why are we trying to fit ourselves in a box that we don't belong in?
Same thing that Gabe Brown says, context.
Yes.
Figure out what works for your area and then start working on it, because you can't take a 120-day corn and plant it in North Dakota.
Yeah.
It'll freeze out.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you got to figure out, what works for your area.
Yes.
And so let's talk a little bit about the transition, because when you know that you want to switch, you want to just flip the switch. And you can't, as you have already articulated. So in 2023, besides doing that pre-emerge treatment for the grass burrs, you did no fertilizer. And so
no chemical fertilizer.
You told me that you'd spent that money instead on
biology, basically.
So as you were gathering your biological tools in your tool belt that year, what did you grab in?
See, I've used Fed and Happy's product. I've extracted it. I've put it down dry with the seed. I've actually put it down here in the yard by itself before I prepared this yard for what you see out there, the garden and so forth. I used Nature's Formula liquid I use that in the mix if I extracted Fit and Happy. I've used, if you listen to like Jimmy Emmons and Glenn Ravenberg, you're talking about not only having the biology, but you're trying to get stuff in there that will feed that biology, strengthen it, like molasses or sugar, and then also fish fertilizer. One application of mine this year had half a gallon of fish fertilizer to the acre. That was in my mix. And so I'm trying to do things that not only do I have the biology, but I've got something that hopefully will feed the biology and help it get going. One that I haven't tried yet that we've talked with about is SoilWorks calcium product, which will help in opening up your soil.
Yes.
And so that was one that I want to try.
I would like to talk about that right now. That's when we were out in the field trying out some new toys that you showed us. You were talking about how if you don't have that soil penetration, then your biology can't survive anyway. So let's talk about that a little bit, because a lot of people that are transitioning, that's exactly where they're going to find themselves.
Yes, sure. The biology is great, and you want the best that you can out there. Like I told you all, I kind of agree with Jay Young out in western Kansas. I want a diversity of biology as well as a diversity of plants. And listening to Glenn up there at SoilWorks, and then this last week I listened to him again and began to think about what he was telling me, that if you have a tight soil, like when a high pressure system comes through that's forcing air down in the soil, it can't do it.
Yeah.
So you're depriving your biology or soil of oxygen. You're not getting the CO2 down in the soil for a carbon source for the biology, and you're not getting water penetration. Basically, what you've got is a situation that a weed likes.
Yes.
And so, therefore, as you all saw in the field, there was weeds. And again, we go back to, in the regenerative side of things, you get a healthy biome, a healthy plant, a healthy soil, and healthy animals. A lot of these things, the pests, the weeds, the insects, and so forth, are going to disappear because they don't. In a lot of cases, they can't survive, particularly if you're rolling a cover crop down on a weed seed. The one people I've listened to tell you that a weed seed is small, doesn't have a lot of energy, and if you got it covered up with a cover crop, it probably won't make it through.
Yeah.
Your crop will, that you put in with a no-till drill.
Right. Well, and it's imperative for the biology to have some space and some air and water in that soil. And if it is that compact, the clay particles stacked tightly on one another, they just can't get in there. I'm really excited to hear about this calcium product, because
And Glenn will also tell you, when we looked at again, I think it's a potentiometer, but I'm not positive, but it measures the charge in the soil. Because your clay particles, he explains it as like a sheet of paper. You have a certain charge to that clay particle, and then around that clay particle, you will have attachment of different elements of the soil, your calcium, magnesium, whatever, carbon, nitrogen, so forth. It all makes sense from a chemistry standpoint.
Exactly.
When you look at the positive, negative ions that you've got going on in that soil. And so then you need that, so you make sure that the biology you're putting out there has a chance to survive and do its job.
There's the cation exchange points on the particles, and I need someone to explain that to me like I'm in kindergarten. So
we'll find somebody.
I'm gonna figure this out. I keep reading it very slowly. So anyway, but that's what you're talking about.
Yes. Yeah. Positive, negative charge. And if you remember chemistry in high school, like charges repel, opposite charges attract.
Yeah.
And that's what you got going on, depending on what the element is charged with and the particle is charged with.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that the calcium will do that we talked about. Glenn's product at SoilWorks is because your calcium over the years, he said their experience has been that calcium works down through the soil. And so if it gets far enough down, you're not affecting that top 2 inches or whatever. And he said basically, he calls it intelligent tillage. Yes. And he said one example of it was when they took over their farm, which is an organic farm, about 1,000 acres, and he said they've turned it into basically a 1,000-acre research farm. Some of it was in CRP or soil bank. It was called before CRP. And they went out there with a moldboard plow and moldboarded it. And he said, what we were doing, we were bringing that calcium back up to the top. And the neighbors thought they were nuts. But, that. If you're going to do this, that may happen.
Yes.
You may have somebody say, you're crazy.
Well, more times than not, people will think you're nuts.
People that have known you your whole life will think you're nuts.
Yeah. What'd you fall off of,
Exactly.
Well, and so that is important too. So we have cracked out plants, so we have to wean them off of the inputs, the chemical inputs, and then we know that we want to get to a no-till situation, but in the beginning, that isn't necessarily going to be the best choice.
And dealing with different situations as far as drought and flood and a number of different things, I don't think that there's a point that we can exactly positively say that we'll never use tillage.
Yeah.
As I've listened, because I know that a lot of people do not agree with any tillage at all. And I've watched this thing, I thought, there may come a time when you will have to do it in order to get done what you want to do with that soil, the biology, and that plant.
Yes.
I was talking to my brother. They had it was a neighbor that I mentioned that my brother was talking to on the compost extracts. And I don't know what his modes were, but I know that from a management standpoint, he was not doing what he needed to do because he let the weeds get away from him to where it was impossible to do anything with it. The grasses and so forth. And some of them, like my brother said, they don't respond to some of your chemicals and so forth. You got to till it, period. You got to catch a hot, sunny day with a V-plow. If you're familiar with what those are, you run them right under the surface and they flip that weed up in the air enough, that soil up enough that it shakes the roots of the plant loose where the sun will kill it.
Yeah.
That's the only way you get it because there's no other means. But you got to do that before you can get a crop to grow or a cover crop to grow.
Yeah.
So is that what we have to do on these stickers?
You may have to just figure out something that you can do with them until you can get them under control to hold them back.
And that was the thing. I mean, I didn't know this. I mean, we haven't lived out on the ranch since we left home for school, college. And, hearing my uncle, my aunt, my dad all saying, yeah, when we get a ton of rain, those stickers just come out of nowhere everywhere. I'm just like, well,
they're in that
wish
soil.
y'all would have told me that before I went down to the hemp field.
They're in that
Prepare
soil.
me.
They're in that soil seed bank.
Yes.
Exactly. Which is where your native grass seeds are as well.
And you get your conditions right.
That's right.
When I worked for Farmland Industries, we had one plant that we used a chemical on that they said will lay 10 foot in the ground. The seed will, and conditions get right, it'll sprout. If you can imagine that.
Yeah, nature's amazing.
Coming up from 10 foot in the ground.
Yeah.
And
I think it was called velvet leaf, if I'm not mistaken. But
Wow.
So that's kind of what you're dealing with. And it's like I told my brother, I said, well, with what he did and not managing it, that'd be like me with my graspers out here saying, oh, I'm just going to let them go. No, I'll figure out a way to get them to where I can get. And like I told y'all, I think that the cover crop this last winter has helped in some spots as far as reducing the amount of them that have come up.
Yes.
And I want to now interject what the experiment you're doing right now with the crimper that you helped
the
figure out and
crop,
fabricate. And then, so talk about
crop roller.
Yes. So ingenuity, figuring out, making what you need. I love that. So talk about that and then how you used it.
Well, my need for that as far as like a corn, soybean, milo, wheat situation wouldn't be like those people that are in that situation where they would be rolling down a cover crop and then planting a no-till planter or drill their crop into that soil cover or soil armor, whatever you want to call it. My situation, I might get to that if I, for some reason, weather-wise, I cannot take that winter cover crop off and I don't want it covering up my Bermuda grass. But my intention with the cover crop was that I'd take it off as a hay crop. That was the reason I built it, though, just in case I could not get that done. And then, like I told you all, I had taken out the other day to see what I could do to the grass burrs that were up, to see if I could damage them enough to eliminate some of the seed. And it looks like I've done some, but whether it'll be enough is the next question.
Yep. Well, and that's the whole thing. Do it, and then you'll know if you need to do it again.
Yeah, I may have to, I think, again, from the response I've seen so far, the cover crop is the answer. Enough species in that cover crop that it will affect the plant that's the weed that's trying to grow.
Yes.
And I can get enough competition, is what I'm thinking, that it'll reduce those. Because that whole side that we were out there and looked at, that used to be, it would get to be solid grass burrs.
That looked great.
Yeah.
So
there were less grass burrs there than a lot of the other places.
And that one little sandy spot that I showed you, that would, a year ago, that would have been solid grass burrs rather than that grass in there.
Well,
I don't know what
that
kind of
makes
grass
me
that
feel
is.
better.
Yes.
That's promising.
And I am hyper focused on right now grass burrs and also mesquite. And where are they on the successional map from the bacterially dominated soil to the fungal dominated soil? Like, where are they? So, and where is the crop that you want to grow? And how do we adjust the soil to the biology that's going to support the crop you want to grow and not support the stickers?
Well, we know with my situation that I was probably starting out last year with a bacterial dominant with all the chemicals it had dumped on it.
Right.
Because it had got, every time that I cut, if it was 3 cuttings a year, it got application of fertilizer on it.
Yeah.
And if I had a weed problem, well, I would hit it with a herbicide. If I had an insect problem, well, I hit it with an insecticide.
Right.
A couple of years ago, I had armyworms come in. And if you listened again to a lot of these people, they will tell you that, matter of fact, Glenn Ravenberg was talking about it the other day when I was listening to him. He said, if you've got armyworms and stuff like that coming in, he said, you pay attention to what it is, you've got a problem, because they won't come in if you got a balanced soil.
That's right.
You got a good biology going, a healthy plant. And he describes a healthy plant as something that's not diseased and it's able to fend off its predators, whatever it might be.
Insects are not attracted to a healthy plant.
No.
And if your soil is healthy, then your plant will be healthy, and then it will put off whatever chemicals or, its own hormones, and that the bugs won't want that. It couldn't penetrate the outer skin of the plant, or it just wouldn't taste good to them, and they would just move on.
Another thing that you probably all see is talk about Brix levels. They talk about 10 to 12 Brix levels. You're not going to have, most insects are not going to want to do that because not having a pancreas, they'll ferment the sugar and it'll turn alcohol and kill them. And one of the liquids that I put on, and I think you all mentioned it, you mentioned it, Joanna, when you were here last time, was the cytocan, is it?
Yeah, the chitinase.
Yeah, I'm not pronouncing it right.
Yeah.
But anyhow, it's a predatory microbe that gets inside the insect. It'll eat it from the inside out and kill it.
Love it.
So this crop has got 2 applications of that on it this year.
Yeah, the product that we love that has the chitinase, Slow Dirt. We'll make sure we get you some of that to try out in your garden with some of your experiments.
We have a problem with grasshoppers around where we are. A lot of people are struggling with that. We have grasshoppers in our yard and almost no damage from the grasshoppers.
Yeah.
Because we have been using Slow Dirt in our beds and in the potted plants. But I see them, but I can't see what they're eating.
Oh,
I see damage from my butterflies and my moth, that are taking down my dill or the
kale.
Yeah.
What's eating your kale?
Oh gosh, that worm. I don't know what it is, but anyway, so frustrating. But yeah, grasshoppers, I see them, but I don't see damage.
I don't know whether you saw them in the field jumping, but they're you walk into that garden and you'll see them too. But I'm like you, I'm not seeing a lot of damage because this has got 2 applications of that Nature's Formula that's got that in it. And then on the field, it's got another application, Elevate Ag out of Harrington, Kansas, deals in some products too that I've put down this year, and it's got it in it too.
Awesome. I can't wait to get a list of your products. And you're telling me names that I haven't read or looked into, so I'm just very excited about that.
I told you, he's a wealth of knowledge.
I know. So fun.
It's fun to meet other nerds that really dig into this stuff too.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing that you were just talking about, having a diversity of biology, that, we want to know everything that you're using. Mm-hmm. You have a diversity of perspectives that you're listening to. You planted a diversity of cover crops. And the thing that is over and over the message in Regen Ag is all the different species of birds and insects, mm-hmm. and all of those things help create that balanced ecosystem. Mm-hmm. So just seeing a grasshopper is not a big deal. We hope we see a lot of different kinds of grasshoppers and bugs and all kinds of stuff. And the solution on the other side of the fence is like, oh, we got to poison that. We got to poison that. We got to poison that, instead of seeing how it can all cohesively work together.
Yes.
And seeing grasshoppers as food for your birds. Recognizing the soil food web, and how important it is that everything gets fed.
Yes.
And that is what I just kill it. I'm like, well, you're killing that, and then what was eating that before?
Right.
And why don't we just bring in more, attract more of that thing that wants to eat it? I have a cucumber plant that was it is beautiful, and we're getting cucumbers. And I went the other day and I saw there are aphids like on different parts of it. And I was like, oh, so I get my bucket of soapy water and my snippers, and I'm going out. And the first leaf I snipped, I was about to dunk it in the soapy water, and I see several ladybug larvae on it. And I was like, okay. I set it aside, clipped another one. Every leaf had ladybug larvae. And so I shifted from being frustrated that I had aphids to then thinking, oh my gosh, I'm creating a ladybug habitat here. So I need that for the rest of my yard as well. This is great.
Beneficial, taking care of the predatory.
That's exactly right.
Yep. I listened to Jimmy Emmons at Leedy, Oklahoma. He was growing, I think it was sesame seed for McDonald's or somebody under contract. And they had a guy checking the field all the time and so forth. And he came in and told Jimmy, got aphids, got to do something with it. And Jimmy said, how many did you find? Oh, well, you just got them. And he said, I just kind of ignored him and never did spray it. Mm-hmm. And the next time he came, you got aphids out there, you need to do something with it. And he said, how many did you find? Mm-hmm. So finally the guy went out and counted. He couldn't find hardly any. And he never did spray it.
Yeah.
And it was because the biology, everything working together was taking care of the problem.
Yes. Even
in this Melpa garden, I've even noticed, I wondered if that wasn't going on. I've got one sunflower plant that there were a couple of them. It was like something right to the top, within about 6-8 inches of top, it would ring that plant and it would just break off. Mm-hmm. And I thought, what is going on? And then I noticed this one, it was looking sick. And it had these bugs all over it. I don't know what they were. I'm not an entomologist. Mm-hmm. And pretty soon, I noticed that plant's coming out of it. Mm-hmm. So I'm wondering if there wasn't a predatory bug on there that those other bugs were eating.
Right.
I don't know, but we know it happens.
It does. Yes.
There's lots of investigation involved in gardening and farming.
Mysteries.
Mysteries abound.
It's an interesting journey.
It is. It is.
So when you switched in 2023, that was just last year, when you did the no fertilizer bit, and you did put that money in diversifying cover crops and the biology, did you save money? Did you spend more money?
Well, I probably spent more because I was determined to get as much diversity in as quick as I could, hoping to get, faster results. And of course, one of the things that probably would have been fast would have been if I could have brought in a herd of beef cattle and bale grazed or mob grazed it.
Yes.
But I didn't have that. So I probably maybe spent more than I needed to on some of the biology and some of the plants and so forth. Like, for example, I had talked to Green Cover Seed. I said, I want to plant something in this Bermuda this spring, like early winter or late winter before it becomes active. And they said, well, let's try cowpeas. I said, okay. So I picked up cowpeas from them. And then last year, as you remember, it was still dry in the spring. And I thought, I don't think I'm going to try it. So I backed off. And then I actually planted the cowpeas this fall. And I had cowpeas growing for a while until the frost got them. And I had some winter peas in there too that survived.
Nice.
And they came off with the first hay crop.
So you did spend more money in 2023 than you normally would have.
Well, yes and no. Yeah, I probably spent more on the biology and the seeds than I would have spent maybe on fertilizer, but maybe not that much. But I was determined that one way or another to get the thing headed the right direction.
Yeah.
I didn't want to put more chemicals down if I could keep from it. And knowing then that you're actually losing and you're not developing your system, you're actually degrading it. I just thought, no. And,
yeah, that's like paying rent versus having a mortgage. You may have spent more money on the biology and diversifying the seeds,
but you're moving towards something.
Yeah, but you're seeing progress, and that is like money in the bank.
You might say it's kind of like an investment account. I'm making an investment, and down the road, maybe it won't be this year, but next year or the following year, because listening to people that have done this, they say it could take, you might get results in a year. It might be 3 years. I listened to a young guy in eastern Colorado, the drought area. He said it's taken him 5 to 6 years to get where he really feels like he's getting the results. And a lot of it has been these guys that are trying to develop this on dry land farming. That's because the lack of moisture. You still have to have moisture.
Yes, and which actually brings me back to the intelligent tilling conversation. So when we don't have cover and we don't have the depth of soil penetration, it's like you can put lots of microbial life onto your soil, but it's not going to survive.
It doesn't have a place to go. It can't go into the soil, and then it can't protect itself from the heat. It needs water, oxygen, and a little apartment.
You're not getting oxygen into the soil. You're not getting moisture in the soil. You're going to get runoff. You're not getting carbon into the soil from the air. You're not getting nitrogen from the air. That air and water, that permeability of the soil, that ability for that high pressure to move that air down. I think it was Glenn Ravenberg again, or one of them said, "Do you believe that soil breathes?" Yes. A high pressure comes along and it forces that air down. Low pressure comes along, guess what? Air comes out. It takes a breath. But if you don't have that permeability,
it's not happening.
You're going to have to get there somehow. That's where I told you all about his tillage method last year, where they actually used a spike that was 7 inches apart, 7 inches long, and they drug that implement across everything that they'd been experiencing droughts with, because the soil was so hard that they knew they were going to have to open it up somehow. And then from there, then you can develop your system.
So did they open that up and at the same time do a planting, or they opened it up and then they came back through with a no-till seed drill?
No, I can't tell you on that. I would say probably they could plant into that. It would have relieved enough of the top tension of that soil that you would have been able to use a disc or some method, some of this new tillage equipment that's out there, to come up with a seed bed where you could drill it. I don't know for sure on that, Joanna.
I'm
guessing.
And I'm just curious.
I'm guessing with that, if you're punching a hole every 7 inches and 7 inches deep, you're going to loosen that soil up considerably. And then you would probably have a seed bed that you could work with. You might have to run over something else over it possibly.
Yeah. How much is enough? How much is too much? And, I just feel like this is the delicate dance that a lot of folks are in now.
I think as far as tillage, you're going to have to do something until you can get that soil and biology where it will work together and you can get that cover crop going, because the cover crop is going to be instrumental in your weed control, your moisture control, your everything, biology, living and so forth.
And when you see someone taking the temperature of the soil amongst cover versus just bare dirt, there's 30, 40, 50 degree temperature differentiation.
Yeah, and it's enough when you get to the high end of it, particularly down here. I like that story I was telling you about the NRCS guy that I was talking to, where they'd measured it with a temperature gun. A bare soil was measuring here 140, 150 degrees, and the covered ground was, in that 70, 80, or 80, 90 range where you still got biology activity.
Exactly.
But 140, 50 while you're sterilizing the soil, you're going to kill just about everything in that, I don't know, top 2 inches or more, maybe.
Yeah. So really creating an opportunity and creating the environment to then allow the soil to accept the biology that you're putting on it. So
make it hospitable to the biology.
Before,
and also at the same time, get you a crop on there if you can, if you've got the moisture to do it. So you're getting that growing plant, that symbiotic relationship started with your biology.
So I would like to talk about the success story that you've had, in the last couple of years with one of your customers, the registered Longhorn breeders, and what they have seen in their animals just based on the shifting of your farming practices and their livestock eating your hay.
These customers, they're got 2 locations here and then in New Mexico, and they have show animals, and then they have some other animals. They have goats and hogs and so forth. But anyhow, they're Longhorns. They had been customers of ours for several years, and then they moved some of their animals out there to New Mexico, and they were buying hay out there and buying feed out there. And they started buying our hay again this last year. And then this year, they began to notice a difference in the condition of the animals, the hair coat, and just everything about those in New Mexico were not as healthy as these here. These here were not getting anything but my hay. Out there, they were getting hay that they bought, and they were getting grain. And I said, I don't know what's going on, but I can tell you that this biology will work. And apparently we're picking up some of it into the hay.
Yes.
And they had a goat out there that his hair was rough, his skin was scaly. They brought him back here, and they said, we should have taken pictures. Within a week, he changed from that scaly skin, hair coat looking terrible, to healthy. And they said they experienced the same thing. And I saw it with my own eyes. They had a show several months ago in Fort Worth, Dallas. They had those New Mexico animals here alongside the ones that were being fed the hay here, and you could see the difference in the hair coat and the condition of the animals. And so they're sold on regenerative agriculture
That's right.
now.
The nutrient density in your hay.
We want to buy every bale of hay you can produce this year. So
Yay. Congratulations.
Yeah,
it's
that's fun.
You know that it works.
Yes.
Like I say, I've still got a ways to go because I still want that soil like David Branscott or Gabe Brown. I like the looks of that soil.
Well, I'll tell you, the proof is in the pudding or in the hay.
The chocolate cake soil.
Yeah. But you just started.
Yes.
You just started.
Yeah.
So, and that's what I really love about permaculture and regenerative agriculture. You just start. Just start doing some things, stop doing some things, but we don't have to make huge sweeping changes. I mean, we can, but also it's just begin to move in that direction. Anyway, I'm really excited. I think that your space out here is so beautiful, and I'm just, my heart, the fact that you have every bit of the equipment you need and the space, and it's just right out here. It is just like the best little test area to really hone these skills. And I thank you so much for having us out here. I have really enjoyed it. It's absolutely beautiful.
Well, thank you. Thank the Lord.
Yes, absolutely. Amen.
Yes. Now, you do have, left over from the previous owners, you do have a small pecan orchard. Is that just something that you are experimenting with as far as your regen stuff, or do you hope to get those back to where you can sell the pecans and add that to your portfolio, if you will?
At this point, Joanna, I don't know. I've been disappointed enough with the pecans that Now, maybe they'll come out of it with the regen ag around them. I don't know. The other thing that we're dealing with here is the age of the trees. The people that I listen to are saying that, like I say, these were planted, I think, in the 50s or 60s. And so, I'm up against an age situation. The other thing is, I don't know whether you've got pecan trees or been around them, but they are a nuisance.
Oh, yeah.
They're either dropping pecans, limbs, their flowers, or something is coming off pecan tree. I like them. And I've even tried to harvest some of these in the past when we've had a year when we've had good pecans, but I ended up with a bunch of the borers in them, and it was basically worthless time picking them up and so forth. So I don't know. I'm about to the point on the pecans. I've got some down the driveway that are dead. I think those are going to get replaced with live oak. I just
mulch them.
Yes, definitely. Troy Swift with Swift River pecans in right outside of Lockhart area. I believe he does a foliar spray on his as well. We're going to have him on the podcast soon, and we'll have some more information for you.
Well, these have had foliar on them. Last year when I was doing foliar in the field, the yard and everything got foliar because my sprayer has a handgun on it.
Yeah.
And I sprayed all the trees and all the shrubs and all the yard and everything. But I don't know. And the other thing that my neighbor tells me that a pecan tree will use 200 gallons of water a day. So
wow.
That's a situation too that I don't know, unless they're down to water table. I don't know if I can put enough water on them.
Exactly.
And now he is running. He has a pretty good well, and I see him. His sprinklers are running in the yard a lot of the time. And some of this damage down the driveway, I'm wondering if it wasn't dry year.
Right.
Well, and that's one of the most important parts of being a regenerative farmer and a responsible steward is recognizing our own water usage. How can we do better, be better? And if we are guzzling too much water, then how are we going to either shift what we're growing and still make use of that stuff? Like if the pecan trees are aging out, what can that do to the biology if we, mulch all of it and spread it across the field, or adding it to the bioreactor, or as Crystal says a lot, and we know the problem is the solution. Maybe they can add an interesting layer to your farming operation.
Yes.
In a way we had no idea.
Well, my experience with pecans so far has been disappointing. I'd put it that way.
Yeah.
I put a lot of labor into them, and I wasn't willing to spray down here, or maybe they do it where you're at too. I think malathion is what they use to get rid of the borer.
I don't know what he has been doing regenerative for like the past 6 years. So
he may have it figured out to where
we're going to get
he's
you
got
some
his
answers.
Biology figured out where it'll stop him.
Yeah.
I thought maybe that might happen too over a period of time if the tree picked up enough biology that it would take care of them. But another thing that the pecans have, of course, about every tree down here, you probably see it down there in the fall, the aphids, and just all over your vehicles and buildings, sticky, and if you don't get it off the paint, it'll actually take clear coat off of a car.
Yeah.
When I was working at the dealership in Abilene, we had that happen to a new car sitting out front.
Oh, gosh.
Left it on too long, and it ate into the clear coat.
Yeah.
Coca-Cola will probably do that too.
Yeah. Or Coke would clean that off.
Okay, Bob, last question, and it's a big one. So if our average farmer is aged 58 these days, 68.
Might be older than that.
Yeah.
If you're talking family farm.
So our farmers are aging out. There's a lot of transitions happening in family farming and ranching from one generation to the next. What advice do you have for farmers that are your age? I mean, you said you're 79 years old and you started on this journey just a couple of years ago. So what advice do you have to inspire other older farmers to look at regenerative agriculture with fresh eyes?
My approach has been with the people that I talked to. Last year when I started into this, I started talking to all my hay customers. I texted them all the people that I was listening to. My advice would be to, rather than watch your favorite TV show at night, pull up one of those webinars of these people and listen to every one of them. And if you don't get it the first time, do like I'm doing, listen to it the second time. If that doesn't do it, the third time, until you can figure out in your operation what will actually work. That may not happen overnight, but the sooner that you move off of chemical farming, your profitability is going to be better. Maybe not right away. You may actually spend more up to start up with, depending on what you got to do. But profitability will be better. Your soil health is going to be better. I've had people say, well, it's too much work. No, it's not. It's just a matter of you deciding what you want to do. And there's no reason not to look at what is going on. And the only problem is that we, as my generation, were educated into chemical farming.
Yeah.
That's basically what happened. And I could go into all the reasons that happened. I think a lot of it is kind of like the saying, follow the money situation. Yeah. But anyhow, when you look at the soil health of the growing areas of the United States, you look at the plant health of the growing areas of the United States, you look at the animal health of the United States, and then let's go further. Let's look at human health. It has done nothing but go downhill in the last 50 to 75 years. And when you listen to a lot of people like Dr. David Johnson and Dr. Christine Jones, they can show you how that can reverse through regenerative agriculture.
Yes.
One of the things that I feel like I'm seeing is that there are people that are doing a really good job in one area. They're great with land management. They have their ranching operation down, but aren't seeing how that connects the dots with the farming piece, where they keep them separate. I have my ranching operation and I have my farming operation. And the thing that we learn in Regen Ag is that those things are not mutually exclusive. They rely on one another. And so finding a way to adopt a mentality that is, you are not a farmer without being a rancher. You aren't a rancher without being a farmer. Those things go together.
Yeah, all you have to do is listen to somebody like Dr. Christine Jones. She talks about the millions or billions of biology in a drop of rumen fluid.
Yes. Yes.
There's a little packing plant over here at Baird. I've thought about going over there to see if I could pick up when they're slaughtering, get the rumen contents, bring them back over here and use them.
Yeah.
Think of the biology you got in there.
Absolutely.
You know? Mm-hmm. So.
Well, and thinking outside the box.
Smart move.
You don't have animals, so that's so smart.
Right. Yeah. If you don't have the animals, then you're going to have to put the biology back in there, like Dr. David Johnson says.
Yep.
Well, Bob, is there anything that we didn't ask you that you feel is important to round out our conversation?
I didn't tell you all about this. I have never seen a jackrabbit here in the 34 years this fall we've been here, and I saw one twice this last week. When I was out there working in the field, I was scared of jackrabbit of. I've seen cottontails, but never jackrabbit. And, they talk about how that you'll see wildlife start to come back in. And I saw this, and I couldn't believe it. That's interesting. And then the other thing that I've seen is the dove this last year. Normally they would be up and around here, but I have never seen them. I think they were roosting in the field.
Oh, yeah.
And the reason I say that is because I found feathers where I figured something had got one.
Uh-huh.
And I could watch out there at times. And I thought, well, maybe it's because there's seed on top and they're getting that. But I've noticed the dove population is more prevalent.
Wonderful.
Are you seeing more a variety of species of birds as well?
I think so. Yeah.
That would be fun to start writing down all the birds. Dion and Crystal did this. After we watched Roots So Deep, they were studying the amp grazing versus the traditional, and going in and observing the insect and bird populations and variety of species. And Crystal and Dion did that in their own backyard. And how many different species did y'all find?
22.
22.
Yes.
Interesting.
And we have like a third of an acre. I mean, it's in town, backyard, but we've got a lot of stuff. And it was amazing when we started writing down things that we see on a regular and daily basis. So that was very fun.
I'm pretty sure that I've got different things going on this year.
Yeah.
And this last winter and so forth.
And being
the
observant.
jackrabbit really caught my attention because I'd not seen one of those in 30 some years.
Yeah. I love it.
Like I said, I just tell people, no matter how old you are, to look at it, study it, and figure out what'll work in your operation. Maybe you got 10,000 acres. Take a 40-acre plot and play with it.
Yeah.
See what you can do, and then go from there.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I really appreciate it.
Glad to have you all.
Happy to be here.
We'll keep working.
We will.
Yes, amen.
Lord willing.
Yes.
And you're so close to our neck of the woods. I'm excited to see what happens with this regenerative community here in the big country.
Yeah, because we're going to be spending more time at the ranch doing things that we need to do. So we'll stop in and see you.
Well, I've got some people in the area. It's taken some time, but they're beginning to think about it.
Yeah, wonderful.
And so that's the other thing that I think you've just got to continue to talk to people. If they'll open their mind up and listen, why that's, education is going to be the thing that'll get them going.
Yes.
They're like Gabe Brown's father-in-law. Well, he enjoyed disking, so yeah. I'm glad it made him happy.
All right, whatever makes you happy.
All right. Well, we're going to go out there and pick some squash before we go.
That's all right.
That sounds
Help
great.
yourself.
All right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Connect with the Soil Sisters at txsoilsisters.co. Submit questions, guest or show ideas, and sponsorship inquiries. The Soil Sisters podcast was created and produced by Joanna Nuding. Editing and sound design are in the capable hands of the PodConnects Podcast Network.